Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. I am scared and I am anxious. So said the Prime Minister Manuel Valls last weekend in an interview. Was he talking about terrorism? No. Was he talking about unemployment? No. He was talking about the far-right National Front and the prospect that it could win elections. So is this merely a ploy to whip up support from his Socialist Party a few weeks ahead of local elections? Or was he just simply stating the truth? With me to discuss the National Front and the reaction from the Prime Minister, Jean-Marc Gonin with the Figaro magazine, Philip Turl with Radio France Internationale. So Manuel Valls had a dream, a bad dream. He saw the National Front possibly winning the next presidential election in 2017. Are there reasons for him to be so scared?
Socialist Prime Minister Manuel Valls is worried with just 2 weeks to go until departmental elections. He fears a win by the far-right National Front would spell disaster for France.
I'm scared for my country. I'm scared it will crack in the face of the National Front. My anxiety? Can I tell you about my anxiety? It's the National Front, with 30% of the vote, not in the second round, but in the first round, in departmental elections.
The Vice President of the National Front is delighted with his party's success in the polls. He says the government is not addressing the real issues.
They should be talking about unemployment, crime, Islamization, inadequate pensions and purchasing power. Real problems, real French concerns. It's deplorable. It's pre-election panic.
Xavier Bertrand of the UMP Right Party blames the Prime Minister for the situation.
It's only now, 9 months after European elections, that Manuel Valls is diagnosing the problem. We expect a Prime Minister that takes action, that gets results. He's the one with the power today.
Analysts say Valls is taking a serious risk using such a strategy.
On the one hand, it's a gamble for Manuel Valls. It could mobilize people. His supporters might say, okay, he's right. We have to go vote even if we're not happy with the Socialist Party. On the other hand, it's a risk. The Prime Minister appears panicked and is publicly admitting that he's falling behind.
The Prime Minister will be attending several rallies over the next 2 weeks, drumming up all the support he can.
So fairly unusual to see Prime Minister Manuel Valls, someone who likes to project authority, to be the strong man, suddenly say he's scared. He's anxious. Is he crying wolf?
He's definitely crying wolf, but I think this is a major false step. If you are, as you said, Mark, the strong man, or if you want to play it, you don't play with that sort of emotions. The Front National, the National Front itself is stirring emotions. You don't answer with yourself with emotions. You answer with arguments. You combat the ideology they are pushing. You combat the issues they are pushing. You are in power. You just don't say, I fear that they come to power. The issue is serious. They might, but this is not the answer in my opinion.
Is it a mistake, or is it more of a strategy? There are local elections coming March 22nd, 29. The Socialist Party is likely to face yet another defeat. So is he just trying to mobilize his troops by maybe playing on emotions?
There are several important issues here. I'm not actually sure that he is not in fact telling the truth. I think he actually is worried, and I think he is scared. But
the polls show the National Front is around 30%.
Yeah, I think he is worried and he is scared. It's not the sort of thing that a Prime Minister should say, because it's not going to do him any good, and there's no concrete solution. And I've seen it written in the papers this week by people, some editorialists saying, well, the first thing I'm going to do is go out and buy a long couch and put Manuel Valls on it and bring in a psychiatrist and say, why are you anxious and why are you worried, and tell me all about it, because he is, by saying this, I think, in fact, pushing more support towards the National Front, because people are saying, well, if he's worried, well, he's obviously not coming up with a solution. Why don't we vote for the National Front, which is coming up with all sorts of ideas. Economic growth is not back. People are concerned about immigration in France. These are all questions that Marine Le Pen, the National Front leader, has been addressing. So I think that he is calling on his supporters, trying to make them concerned, but it's not. That's not the main problem. The main problem is that when it comes to voting in these elections at the end of the month, National Front supporters are motivated. The Socialist Party supporters are not motivated because they say not only Socialist Party but also the traditional right. They say, well, neither the traditional right nor the Socialists have managed to improve the economy, so there's no point in us voting because it's not going to change anything. Which means the less people who vote, the more support there is proportionally for the National Front, and I think that is what Manuel Valls is worried about.
But isn't he trying to do what happened back in 2002 when Jean-Marie Le Pen surprisingly made it to round 2 of the presidential election, and there was a kind of rally around his opponent, who was the conservative candidate, Jacques Chirac? Is Manuel Valls maybe trying to get the socialists, but also the conservatives, to react and, in a way, fight the National Front?
It's probably one of
the Republican Front strategy, as it's called.
Probably part of what he's got in mind. But since 2002, the situation has changed thoroughly. Look, now the local elections we're facing for the next 2 weeks, the National Front will be the strongest force in the first round, which is something completely new in this country. So there is not even a doubt today that Marine Le Pen will be at the second round for the presidential election. Every polling institute says so. So now, what the political leaders of other parties are facing is a kind of primary in the first round, knowing that the Front National candidate will be at the second round anyway. There's a sort of rush, a primary between the normal conservatives, that is the Nicolas Sarkozy and his parties, and the socialists, and that's where they are whipping their electors.
So let me ask you, Philip. So might there be a more cynical ploy by Manuel Valls, a ploy that's been denounced by the conservatives, meaning the Socialist Party has always been trying to help, without saying it, the National Front in order to weaken the conservatives. So by saying the National Front is scaring me, I'm anxious about this, is Manuel Valls maybe trying to give more support to the National Front so that it might crush the conservatives and the socialists might be the ones on the other side?
I actually don't think so. I think in the old days, François Mitterrand might have done that. He was always accused of having manipulated the National Front to weaken the traditional right. But I think now the National Front has become the third major player in this country: the traditional right, the left, and the far right. And it's a three-card game, if you like, between these three different parties. And what I don't understand, and I really find this extremely surprising, is that neither the left nor the traditional right are fighting the National Front on the one issue where they are the weakest, and that is on the economy. They are always playing into, there's too much immigration, we have to fight them on that front. Or there's too much insecurity, we have to fight them on that front. Or there's a problem with the European Union, we have to fight them on that front. But the policies that Marine Le Pen has come up with come out of the euro, which is the main one, even come out of the European Union, erect barriers around France to protect it, but it won't protect industry at all, are not being fought by either the Socialist Party currently in power or by the traditional right. And I think if they're going to undermine the National Front, it's going to be on that ground, on that territory, that they're going to be able to do it, because they won't be able to do it on any other of the issues that the National Front is standing up for, because now people don't believe the traditional parties, they believe the National Front.
The problem with that is the record of both the right and the left when it comes to growth and employment is far from stellar. So clearly Marine Le Pen can say, well, they've tried it, you've tried it, try us.
Yes, and on the top of what you're saying, which is perfectly right, the only things you can announce as an economic policy is bad news. More hardships, more difficulties. You have to ask people for, blood, sweat, and tears somehow. So this is, whereas Marine is saying, I have a simple solution. What hurts France is the rest of the world. So let's isolate from the rest of the world. Globalization is bad. Europe is bad. Euro is terrible. So let's dream of France that is out of this. So, okay, it has no substance, but when you have people on the other side saying, well, you will have to endure even more dire straits than before, well, it's hard to sell.
There are two maybe glimmers of hope here for the traditional parties. That is that the National Front traditionally does better in local elections than in the national elections. So whereas it's expected they're going to do very well in the departmental elections at the end of this month, it doesn't necessarily signify that they will do very well in the presidential elections in 2017. And I think that economically, there may be a change around between now and then. Unemployment may begin to come down. Not sure about that, but the economy may begin to rally a little bit. So there may be some good news for the government between now and the next presidential election. But the fact of the matter is the National Front is on a winning streak, is gaining more and more power, and the traditional parties are finding it very, very hard to come up with any kind of argument to fight against that.
And they talk mostly about the National Front, like Manuel Valls, but also Nicolas Sarkozy. They talk a lot about the National Front.
That's the pivotal issue right now. You see now, this is the big change now. The whole political life in this country is articulated around the National Front. So even when they talk so much about it, they make it happen. Now, Marine Le Pen is at the center of the stage, and she might well, with the help of Sarkozy on one side and Valls on the other, she might well get to the second one just by the fact that she's discussed in every circle.
And the paradox of the matter
is in every circle.
And the paradox of the matter is Marine Le Pen doesn't actually say very much and doesn't actually come up with very many ideas because she feels like it's being done for her by the traditional parties in France, by Manuel Valls on one side or François Hollande and by Nicolas Sarkozy on the other.
Okay, we'll have to see how those election results will unfold here. We'll follow them on France 24, obviously with you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.